What is up, YouTube? What is up, Facebook? This is another special edition of Uncle Tom's Extravaganza. I really don't have that much of a show planned in terms of like a list of things that I wanted to talk about, but I guess I'm just going to kind of go off script and kind of just talk about what comes to the top of my head because there's been a lot of things that have happened and that have transpired over the course of the last couple of days. And one thing that I've really been in awe of is now people are surprised at the lengths in which the situation with the current administration, the lengths that they will go to try to keep and maintain unconstitutional power. If you don't know, there was a couple of different interesting things announced just recently, and I'm actually going to play some of these things and kind of watch along with you guys and try to make some sense of what's going on here. But I gotta say, on Uncle Tom's Extravaganza, we always tell you the truth. We always try to look at things from a biblical point of view. We always tell you the truth, even if it's not something that people want to hear. And we're going to do the same thing. But I want to kind of give you guys some information on what is going on because, as you know, there was a announcement that was made by the Biden administration about a plan to battle the new COVID variant. And if you were a longtime watcher of this podcast and of this broadcast every week, you would know that this is something that we've told you that they were going to do last year. And it's something that we said is going to continue to happen and continue to happen as long as they are in power because um, nobody nobody really has a clear cut goal for what they want to see in terms of this pandemic. And I'm going to go into that more so after we watch a little bit of what I have in mind in terms of a clip because I want to show you guys a clip. And I don't like to just say things and act as if uh, I'm just like I'm just beyond something, but I want to share something with you guys and hopefully it's something that we can discuss and have a good dialogue about later on. And let's watch along, shall we? Let's just watch along.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. I want to talk to you about where we are in the battle against COVID 19,
Oh,
the progress we've made, and the work we have left to do.
oh,
And it starts with understanding this:
oh,
even as the Delta variant COVID 19 has been hitting this country hard, we have the tools to combat the virus if we can come together as a country and use those tools. If we raise our vaccination rate, protect ourselves and others with masking, expanded testing, and identify people who are infected, we can and we will turn the tide on COVID 19. It'll take a lot of hard work. It's going to take some time. Many of us are frustrated with the nearly 80 million Americans who are still not vaccinated, even though the vaccine is safe, effective, and free. You might be confused about what is true and what is false about COVID 19. So, before I outline the new steps to fight COVID 19 that I'm going to be announcing tonight, let me give you some clear information about where we stand.
now wait a minute. Now, before he continues on, I want you to notice how he talks about a frustration with people who are unvaccinated. And the reason why I'm kind of intrigued by this is because one thing that I have yet to hear is an actual goal. What is the actual goal of this administration in terms of COVID? Is it a 0% infection rate? Is it a 0% death toll? Is it 1%? Is it 5%? Is it 20%? Do they want to stop it from existing, period? Like, what is the clear cut goal? And so he states, well, there's a vaccine, but still people don't want to take it. And that's why we're still having this problem. Meanwhile, the Delta variant, if you have the vaccine, it's now coming out and showing that it really doesn't do anything against the Delta variant. So even if you get a vaccine, and now they're talking about people now needing a third shot, they need a booster shot now. But yet here he is going up and expressing his frustration at just the people who just don't want to get vaccinated. Maybe I should let this play on. Let me let this play on just a little bit more.
First, we've made considerable progress in battling COVID-19. When I became president, about 2 million Americans were fully vaccinated. Today, over 175 million Americans have that protection. Before I took office, we hadn't ordered enough vaccine for every American. Just weeks in office, we did. The week before I took office on January 20th of this year, over 25,000 Americans died that week from COVID-19. Last week, that grim weekly toll was down 70%. And in 3 months before I took office, our economy was faltering, creating just 50,000 jobs a month. We're now averaging 700,000 new jobs a month in the past 3 months. This progress is real. But while America is much better shape than it was 7 months ago when I took office, I need to tell you a second fact. We're in the tough stretch, and it could last for a while. Highly contagious Delta variant that I began to warn America about back in July spread late summer, like it did in other countries before us. While the vaccines provide strong protection for the vaccinated, we read about and hear about and we see the stories of hospitalized people on their deathbeds among the unvaccinated over the past few weeks. This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Okay. So,
It's caused by the
so
fact
that's what
that
it is, huh?
despite America having
That's what it is, huh?
unprecedented and successful vaccination program,
I have to turn him off because now I'm starting to get angry. My co-host is joining me. Daddy, what do you think about him saying this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated? Is that true? Is it the fact that just because people just don't get vaccinated, that's the reason why the Delta variant is running around and being spread? I mean, is this true? Is this a reality?
I'm gonna try to be as the nice as I can this evening.
Oh, you know what? Hold on a second. You have to turn on your quantum for your audio. Your audio is kind of choppy.
Okay, sure, we gotta go.
And before I let you answer, I'm going to go back and I'm going to actually replay what he just said so that you can come on after you fix your audio and everything and let me know what you think about his words about this being a crisis of the unvaccinated. Let's hear him again.
back in July,
Let's hear him again.
late summer, like it did in other countries before us. While the vaccines provide strong protection for the vaccinated, we read about and hear about and we see the stories of hospitalized people on their deathbeds among the unvaccinated over the past few weeks. This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And it's caused by the fact that despite America having unprecedented and successful vaccination program, despite the fact that for almost 5 months, free vaccines have been available in 80,000 different locations, we still have nearly 80 million Americans who have failed to get the shot. And to make matters worse, there are elected officials actively working to undermine the fight against COVID-19. Instead of encouraging people to get vaccinated and mask up, they're ordering mobile morgues and the
Now,
unvaccinated
before I
died.
go further with this, what does this sound like to you? And as I let you answer that question, hopefully our audio is better now. Uh,
Hopefully, can you hear me?
yes, that's perfect. So what do you
All
think
right.
about him saying all of that and hearing all that from him? What do you think he what do you think about that? About
Well,
being told that it's
there's so
all on the fault of the unvaccinated people?
there's so many things that go through my mind when I listen to this man. First of all, I'm not surprised. There seems to be an unraveling of his character. Just he says one thing and he does something else. I want to remind people how he came in talking about he was coming to unite people, but all this does is divide people. And when he talks about the unvaccinated, uh, what he's saying is simply not true. It depending on who you're looking at and who you're believing.
Mhm.
I'm seeing a lot of evidence of people that have already had the vaccination uh, getting COVID again, and so here's the thing that really kind of, and I'm not going to even say bother because I got to get past this. But for him to get up
It's
and
real
say
hard.
anything, him to say anything about this, and at the same time, our borders are open, and you're allowing people to come into this country that are infected, and that depends on which news media.
Isn't that an
If you wi-
oxymoron? Talking
if
about the
you if
unvaccinated people, but you
right
let in more
right
unvaccinated people by the
right
day.
exactly. That's I mean it's to me it's just that's everything that is going on right now should be really proven to people who this man really is. You're talking about a vaccination. You're talking about unvaccinated people. However, you're letting these unvaccinated people in, and not only are you letting them in the country, uh, people that have tested, they've tested and they have COVID, and you're flying them. Once they get into the country, you're flying them to different parts of the country and just letting them loose.
I guess the
So,
question is, do you think people care? I mean, do people actually care about the hypocrisy? Like, do they really care? Do they even because I have another clip that I'm gonna show from Joe Biden during the debates before the election talking about what he was going to do for COVID. So now, there's some people who are shocked
well, you
that
know
he would
what?
go and take
If
this language
right,
all of a
what
sudden.
well, you know what? If I was a Democrat, if I voted for this man, I wouldn't be saying anything either. I'd be keeping my mouth shut too. And that seems to be, to me, really, if you really look at it, especially when it comes to, I can give people a pass if you're not a Christian. Because to me, if you're not a Christian, you just don't know any better. You're in your sin, and you need
Mhm.
deliverance, you need a savior. But we're talking about a whole lot of Christians that voted this man in office. And the things that he's just doing blatantly is anti-Christian, anti-Christ.
In better
You
shape.
see that's his agenda.
Yep.
And I'm saying that everything that now you're going to come up and you're going to give a speech about you penalizing people that have not taken the vaccination, which
Oh,
if
we haven't
people
even got
don't
to that
know,
part yet.
if people
Oh,
don't know and don't
his speech
understand, that's
his
a
speech gets
that's
even better.
that's a lot of black people that have not taken that vaccination. And I can't fault anybody for that because why would you trust this? And like I'm seeing if you really look at the numbers and you look at the things that are really going on, you see people that have gotten the vaccination, uh, a lot of adverse effects from different people, and then you see a lot of people that are uh, uh, that have had the vaccination getting COVID again. Now, here's my question. Here's the stupidity of all this that I'm looking.
Mhm.
Okay, you're saying the unvaccinated. are affecting these people, but how are they affecting anybody that's already vaccinated? How is the unvaccinated affecting people that have been vaccinated?
That's a great question. That see, and these are questions that I ask fundamentally when he begins to talk, such as now, and we haven't even got to the part of the speech where he talks about weaponizing, and that's the word that I'm gonna use, weaponizing employers to use their power to
Exactly.
basically
Exactly.
force people to get vaccinated, or otherwise, and like the title of the show says, they could neither buy nor
Nor
sell.
sell. Yep.
And this is something that, and it's funny because like I said earlier at the very beginning of this broadcast, remember we predicted this last year. I talked about how I made a bet with somebody and I said, as long as President Donald Trump is the president and in office, he will not make this vaccine mandatory. But I said, if Joe Biden gets in there and if Democrats get in there, they're going to do everything they can to make sure that everybody mandatorily has to take this vaccine.
Can we get to the root of this? Because remember, this whole broadcast is wrapped around looking at things biblically from a biblical worldview.
What do you think is the root of this?
The root of this is Jezebel. The root of this is witchcraft. Jezebel, witchcraft, control and manipulation, power over people, to control people. Number one is blatantly against God. It's blatantly against our biblical values, to tell us that we need to we better do this. And then secondly, just it's simply unconstitutional.
I
This
mean,
is simply unconstitutional.
It is. I mean,
You know, and let me give you a third one.
It is.
Let me give you a third one. And this is where I look at people that are Christians and are Democrats. And this is why I understand that they're silent, because the stupidity of all of this, let me give you an example. What I'm talking about is, don't the Democrats, especially women, and especially this whole thing was about women. It was about when it came to abortion, it's my body, my choice.
I was gonna
My
run
body,
down these
my
things.
body, my choice.
Isn't that a big thing? Isn't that a big thing?
That was huge for them. It's my body. But when it comes to this, that's all out the window.
It's a double standard, right?
It's definitely a double standard. And who do you hear talking about? I don't hear Democrats talking about it. I don't hear
You won't
Christians
hear anybody talking about it.
And you know what? This is what makes me angry. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna be done. So because I know you got a whole lot you want to put in there.
I don't. I'm just going.
Listen
through the line of his speech.
But listen. I'm talking about leaders in the church. I'm talking about bishops, and I'm going to name call tonight.
A couple of those guys got called out recently.
Bishop Paul Morton.
Oh, he called his name.
Yes.
Oh.
What he has done is that you cannot go and attend his church services unless you are vaccinated. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? And on top of that, here's the other thing that he did. He's railing against Texas for passing this law against abortion. This is a bishop that's supposed to be full of the Holy Ghost and wisdom. But I'm telling y'all, we've been talking about God separating the sheep from the goats. And there you have it. There you have it.
You know what? And you can't even really defend it, because it's like,
you can't make this stuff up.
In order to be a part of the beast system, because we're talking about let's just talk fundamentally theologically. And this is why I said bad theology leads to bad faith, which leads to bad decisions and people doing things that are out of line of their Christian faith. See, this is a attribute of Satan, because Satan's main goal is to force people to do stuff. Satan's goal is to take away free choice and free will. Satan wants to make it so that you don't have the free will to be able to choose. That's why everywhere that Satan gets into control, he always has to start mandating that you do what someone else says. He takes away free choice. Think about it. Everywhere in the Bible, even God, when he created Adam and Eve, he gave them the gift of free will.
Free will.
And everywhere else that you see in scripture where Satan tries to infiltrate somewhere, let's talk about in the book of Daniel, when somebody told the king that he should make an image, and that when the music plays, everyone who is great or small should have to bow before the
down.
image, or else they were going to be punished punitively. What is that? That's a satanic spirit. Let's talk about how later on in the book of Revelation, when it comes up to the point and when the Antichrist finally gets to be in control of everything, what does he do? He makes sure that he makes everybody do the same thing. He gets rid of choice. He gets rid of free will. He gets rid of the ability to be able to do something. And so what's interesting to me is that Christians constantly vote for a party that has said, even in the past, that they agree with things like this.
Right. Listen to this. What I'm getting ready to say. Is this the dress rehearsal for the Mark of the Beast?
I've always said that it was a dress rehearsal. See,
oh my goodness!
If you remember the show that we did last year, and people don't listen to me. This is why I got a small church, and you know, people don't like me. People don't want to come. You know, and that's okay. But I said last year that this was a practice to see what they would need to do to get people to have to comply. And I said that
they didn't have to do a whole lot, did they?
And I said that if you disrupt certain things with human beings and with people, you can usually get them to get rid of their morals and values. I said if you threaten people's peace of mind, if you threaten people's money, and if you threaten people's well-being in terms of their health, their ability to be able to be safe, you can get them mostly to do anything. And this is something that I predicted, and I said that they were going to use. And I said that when this virus came out, it was them trying to see how much can we get away with in terms of getting people to have to listen to us, so that they have to stop doing what they're doing and they have to listen to us. What do we got to do? And
you know what?
Nobody's asking the question of,
right,
why is it that this virus isn't natural? Why is it that this virus was actually created in a laboratory and man-made? For what purpose?
Right.
For what purpose would this even be made?
And we don't hear, when we don't hear nothing but lies out of the people that should have the answer, that they're lying about it. They're lying about it. And here's the thing. Think about it like this. If you got a bishop, say if you go into this man's church and this man is telling you can't come to church until you get the vaccine.
I hope
whatever,
you
and you got to prove, and you got to prove it. Do you think anybody left that church?
I'm thinking some people did. I'm thinking some, because I'm thinking that some people probably, God might have used that as a wake up call. Because I think sometimes when people go to these churches, sometimes they might look beyond certain things, and they might look beyond them because they're focusing on what God told them to do. But I think when something like this happens, it kind of puts them on the standpoint of, okay, is this God? Would God tell us to do something like this?
Right.
Where's this at in the Bible?
But can you imagine, you know, and I'm gonna call their name when I find out who it is, just like him. I'm gonna say their name. I'm not afraid, but because we need to call them out. we need to call these people out for what they're doing and to expose them, because from what I'm understanding, a lot of pastors, mega church pastors, black pastors, got money for promoting the vaccination in their churches.
Yeah.
One in particular I heard about was Bishop Jakes. Now I don't know how true that is, but I heard that, and I've heard it more than once.
But you know what's funny about this, and but nobody wants to talk about this. Whatever happened to the power of God, that people believing that when they gather together, that there's healing power in the laying on of hands from the elders? Whatever happened to that? Whatever happened? And why is it that so many people are afraid now of death? Have you ever heard of so many Christians who are afraid of death? I understand not wanting to go before your time. I understand that. But whatever happened to the confidence and the assurance of understanding, while I am on this earth, I have a purpose.
Right.
And when I meet my purpose, that's when God is going to allow for me to be taken out of here. And when that happens, I'm okay with it, because to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, right? Like, am I the only person who has that mindset? Like,
yeah, well,
am I the only person who thinks like this? Am I wrong?
Well, you gotta
like
be on the right frequency. If people aren't, number one, the frequency that's the loudest and doing the boasting and is loudest right now is the frequency of fear. And fear is being pumped into the earth right now because of this virus. And the media has latched on to this. They're loving this because it gives them this pseudo power.
Yep.
To tell people you got to wear. I'm the
Yeah.
thing that bothers me the most is that my grandchildren have to wear a mask to school and sit in school all day with a mask on. That bothers me. To me that's slavery. It's and here's the thing. In Islam, you got these women wearing the hijab or whatever they call it. You know, what's the difference? These kids have a mask on. It's affecting them socially. It's affecting their psyche. I'm thinking about my babies in kindergarten, and I'm thinking that this is their kindergarten experience. Is that they got to wear a mask. They can't even see the faces of other kids, and they can't see the laughters or the smiles or whatever. This is horrible, and it's nothing but fear. And we are pumping fear. I'm gonna say they are pumping fear, because you're right. I pray the hedge of protection around me every day, and I realize I'm not immune to stuff, but I realize that if something happens to me, I know where I'm going. So that doesn't bother me. But I'm refusing. I'm going to refuse to walk in fear. I'm refusing, because of the Holy Spirit in me. I'm refusing to allow fear to hinder me. You understand what I'm saying?
You want to know what
you can't go here, you can't do this, you can't do that.
I think that's one of the greatest phrases that I think that I made. I don't know if anybody quoted this. I know that I say this. This is something that I say, meaning Justin Bozeman. I say this, and it comes out of the Bible. The Bible says, and this is just something that I thought of during the pandemic: the righteous shall live by faith.
By faith.
The faithless live in fear.
That's a good one. That's right.
And I think I got that one day when I was sitting around after I prayed, and I was like, why are so many people afraid? And it was like, the faithless live in fear, because if you don't have the faith that God is God and that God has a purpose for you, or that you're in the will of God, so that way God is supernaturally protecting you to preserve you for this time,
right,
you're going to live faithless. And a lot of people don't have that faith.
Right. Does not the scripture say the just shall live by live by faith.
Yep.
And that's our greatest weapon is our faith. And the devil's greatest weapon that he has is fear.
Yep.
And he's pumping it. He's pumping it into the churches, and don't talk about it. Don't, oh, I can't believe you're not worried, and you're not worried
Yep.
about what?
Yep.
Worried about what?
And you want to know what also bothers me, and you talked about it briefly. They've been big for the last 50 years saying my body, my choice, all this other stuff. But now when it comes to this, they're allowed to, and this is what the Democrats accuse conservatives of doing, isn't it? They get on their moral high horse and say, well, the greater good is the public safety. So we now can violate your freedoms of your body and your choices because of
Right.
how we feel.
Right.
But meanwhile, watch this. As a conservative who hates the killing of children, you can't say that to a woman who wants to go off and kill her children, because you're just one of those Bible thumping Christians, which, by the way, that show's coming up very soon. You're one of those Bible thumping Christians who just wants to hit people upside the head with the Bible and think that you're better than everybody. See, that's what they'll say, right? Isn't that what they'll say?
Yeah, that's what they say.
Isn't that what they call conservatives? Isn't that what they've
Right.
called the people from the Bible Belt down south? Like, oh,
Right.
those religious
But you know-
Christians with their guns and their Bibles. Oh my gosh.
But don't you people should understand and know that this is all. See, we talk about this as, Democrats against Republicans, black against white, all that stuff. But no, it's not that. What it is, this is a straight out attack on Christianity.
Oh yeah.
Because number one, Christianity affords anybody the most freedoms that they've ever had. Free in your mind, free in your spirit, free in your body. And then we got the Constitution, but number one, we got the natural law of God. That's where our freedom and our liberty derives from. And he whom the Son sets free is free indeed. If
Mhm.
I'm free indeed, then why am I kowtowing to what people are telling me I should be doing, and I should be worried about, and I should be afraid about? That's what I'm talking about.
You know what, though? I think one thing that people don't understand is conservatism is rooted, at least the type of conservatism that I practice, conservatism is rooted in faith in
Exactly.
a God who is one God, who is absolute, and conservatism believes in absolute truth.
Exactly. There you go.
If you're not a conservative, if you're a liberal, liberals believe in the subjectiveness of truth, meaning the standard can change. And so this is why I would think that anybody who calls himself a Christian would easily fall into the category and not have to argue about it or even think about it of being a conservative, because true conservatism, which I don't think that black people hear this a lot. True conservatism is rooted upon the fact that there is a God, and that God made rules and laws and gave man unalienable rights and freedoms.
Exactly.
And it is that God who gave man unalienable rights and freedoms that also gave us his son, and his son is absolute truth. Because it's found in the personhood of Jesus Christ. So
Right.
everything that we believe is rooted in absolute truth. There is one way, and everything else is a lie. Everything else is a deviation. And so we don't force our beliefs on other people. We don't have to force you to do certain things. We don't have to do that, because the God of the Bible gives you a choice.
Exactly.
But the liberals, they only want to give you the choice that they think
They
feels
want
good,
you to have, right?
that they want you to have. And so
and those
I don't know why
choices
people
that
don't see
there's
that.
right, those choices that they're giving you are choices so that they can control you.
That is correct.
The good example is black people voting Democrat for all of these years. They want you to vote Democrat so they can continue to control you, control what you do, control your how you operate in your community. That's all about control. That's all we joke around and we call it the Democratic plantation, but that's exactly what it is. Get you in this area because we're going to keep you over here and do not deviate, do not go outside the box. But when you really are free by the Prince of Peace, and you really have that freedom, then you're automatically out the box, and can't nobody put you back in the box. So when people hear you talk and they hear us talking like this, I get accused of, it's like, are you crazy? And all of this stuff. But the main thing that I see when I'm talking to people, and it's kind of, it's not, you don't even have to use a lot of discernment. But when I'm talking to people, and these are all people I love, people I work with, people on Facebook and things, I'm talking to him, I can hear the bitterness, I can hear the anger coming out. And I'm saying to myself, I'm thinking to myself, my
Wow.
discernment is saying, this person
Wow.
is not free. This person is not delivered. This person is still, I had to tell somebody today on Facebook, I said, you need to be free. How is it that black people are still talking about Whitey and Whitey did this? How are you still doing that if you've really truly been set free by the blood of the Lord Jesus Christ? Ain't nobody holding you back but you. And when you exalt this skin color
it's not
over
talking.
everything, that's where your problems come in.
A lot of that isn't talked about. A lot of that isn't talked about, and it's not going to be talked about. And so let me do something. This is a laid back episode. Shall we listen to more of Joe Biden blame the
I don't want
unvaccinated?
to listen to him no more, but if you want,
Because I just want to point out everything. Because I think people think that we're making this stuff up. So I think they need to hear for themselves, because I don't think people even watch this. I think they just listen to CNN, and what CNN does is they'll smooth stuff over and sweep stuff underneath the rug. That's what they'll do.
No,
They won't
they're
actually tell the story.
they're making it palatable to their office.
That's what they'll do. And they'll say, well,
audience.
this just makes it safe for everybody. Don't you
Right.
want to be safe in America?
but
This is the
here's-
right thing
but
for him
see,
to
here's the
violate
thing.
constitutional freedoms. Yeah.
Here's the thing. The Bible says my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. When I listened to that man, the first thing that came to my mind is that this is blatantly unconstitutional. What he's saying and what he's doing is blatantly unconstitutional. Number one. Well, I shouldn't say number one. Number one is anti-biblical.
I have a theory about that.
Number two is unconstitutional. So he does not have a leg to stand on. So he's going to take authority from the states. He's talking about these governors, and we got to do stuff to these. Man, you're blatantly going against the laws that have been established in this country, so you can control and manipulate people.
You know what, though? I think in a state of brilliance, and I put the camera a little bit closer to me to say this. In a state of brilliance, though, I think one thing that Joe Biden doesn't do very well, he's a career politician. I would have to think that either A, he knows that at some point people will just give up and let him do this. That's one feasible thing. Or two, and this is what I think it is, he knows that it's unconstitutional, and he knows that it'll get struck down, especially with the way that the Supreme Court is. And because he knows that it'll get struck down, he can do two things with this. He can virtue signal to his liberal colleagues, well, I did everything I wanted, everything I tried to do to keep the country safe. But listen, those conservative judges, they shot me down. So you know what this means? We need to pack the courts. I mean,
Yeah,
doesn't
I think you're right.
I'm starting to see
I
the
think you're right.
wheels spinning right there. Can you see the wheels spinning right
Right.
there? Because I think Joe knows that this stuff isn't going to go through. He knows it's
Right.
unconstitutional. But if he says pack the courts, guess what? Him and his liberal friends will get to do on TV what they've done to the black community, which is make a political argument about emotions rather than actual logics. Other than actual logic. See,
Well,
because
isn't that how you
whenever you
isn't that
make
how you appeal?
a
Isn't that how
argument
you appeal to black
emotional,
people? Isn't
yeah,
that how you appeal to black people?
yes,
You
because
appeal to black people
yeah,
because you know the first thing that's going to affect them is their emotions.
and that's why they do that.
They're not going to take this thing and think critically about it. They're not going to do that. They're going to add their emotion. They're going to get cuz again, I'm seeing too many people getting upset when I just mention things about this. I'm watching these people get angry and I'm saying to myself, why in the heck are they getting so angry? What is the trigger? What is causing people to just get so doggone upset?
That's a
You know?
psychological thing. They do that on purpose. And here's the word that I'm looking for: logistics. You understand that as a conservative, in most cases, we can win a logistics argument, but the problem is most people are not taught from the time that they're children, especially in the black community, because a lot of people in the black community aren't raised by fathers. So they don't know how to do this. They're not taught to think logically. They're not taught to think about, okay, I know what sounds good, but what actually is realistic and what
You know
actually
what?
doesn't violate freedoms. And so they're going to go to the press and say, see, those conservatives are not concerned with the safety of this country. And that's why they're going to let grandma die. That's why they're going to let your kids die. That's why they're going to let you possibly be at risk, because those conservatives, those Bible toting conservatives, are all about themselves. And so we have to rise up and mobilize and vote these people out because they're a threat to your freedoms in this nation. That's what they're going to do. That's what I'm thinking they're going to start to do in terms of spinning this argument that they do, because they do it so well. And with black people, and actually I'll say even with all people now, because the media does it across the board, they're going
Yeah,
to
they
be able
do.
to push this on the college campuses and get people mobilized all on a lie. Because here's the thing, they're only looking short-sightedly. See, first things first, and this is something that we don't talk about, they've been lied to about this virus in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
They've been told that this virus
Nothing but
it's the
lies.
bubonic
Check of
plague,
lies.
and it's this and it's that, and everybody's going to die, and once you get it, you're going to die too. That's what they've been told. They've been told this many people died from this, and oh, it's just so dangerous. Oh my gosh, that's what they've been told. But meanwhile, the numbers actually indicate that the virus, even though it is highly infectious, it's not as lethal as they say, less than 1%.
Right.
So they,
I heard that the numbers of people being infected are actually going down, but you're not
I,
hearing that in the media.
I don't think that you'll hear that, because here's what they're going to focus on. And this is why I asked at the beginning, what is the goal? Is the goal zero infections? Is that the goal? Because like when did we ever live in a world where the flu doesn't exist,
Right, exactly.
or pink eye, or the common cold, or mono? I mean, I'm just asking. Maybe, Daddy, at some point in your life, you've lived longer than me. You always tell me how old you are. Maybe at some point in your life there was no sickness. But
No,
can you?
it's never in my life have I seen where now in my lifetime I've seen polio. Uh, when I was a child, polio was you always all the kids before you went to school, you had to get your polio shot and everything. So I actually seen polio totally eradicated. But I've also heard too that polio has had a resurgence in some of the third world countries. So it's like you never really totally get rid of it. Matter of fact, I heard that a lot of these people that Biden, the Afghanistan, the Afghanis that he has brought over here from
Oh,
Afghanistan, there was a measles breakout at one of the forts that they're at.
oh
You
no, say it
know,
ain't so.
no, it is measles.
Oh,
It's the outbreak of measles. An
now wait a
outbreak
minute.
of measles.
Let, and this is a question that I'm gonna ask. I think I'm gonna ask this question after I play this clip a little bit more, because this question that I'm gonna ask after I play this clip and play him speaking a little more is going to be inflammatory. But I just want to hear him blame, because people think that we make this stuff up, Daddy. I really do. People on Facebook probably think that we just make this stuff up, or we just interpret what people say wrong. So I want you to hear straight from the horse's mouth, the same way that we encouraged you all throughout the Trump administration. So instead of hearing it from the media, go straight to the horse's mouth. Go straight to the website. You listen to him answer questions. Listen to him give his own answers on what's going on. Remember, we said that we're going to do the same thing here, and we're going to do what we said that y'all should do, and we're just going to listen to it straight from the horse's mouth. So let's hear Joe Biden as I sit back and just relax on this Friday night that I am unable to work on due to some circumstances, but I'm going to be productive and shame the devil and expose these devils tonight. Since I can't make money, I might as well expose these devils in the process. So let's hear Joe Biden talk more about the vaccine and what's going on with vaccine. Shall we? Can we? Do I have that clip
ordering
ready to go?
mobile morgues
Here we go.
for the unvaccinated dying from COVID in their communities.
Oh,
This is totally unacceptable.
oh,
Third, you wonder how all this adds up. Here's the math. The vast majority of Americans are doing the right thing. Nearly 3/4 of the eligible have gotten at least one shot, but 1/4 has not gotten any. That's nearly 80 million Americans not vaccinated. And a country as large as ours, that's 25% minority. That 25% can cause a lot of damage, and they are. The unvaccinated overcrowd our hospitals, are overrunning emergency rooms and intensive care units, leaving no room for someone with a heart attack or pancreatitis or cancer. And fourth, I want to emphasize,
so
vaccines provide
so
very
do you hear
strong
this, Daddy?
protection
The
from severe
the
illness
biggest
from
problem
COVID-19.
in Western culture in
I
America
know
is
there's
the
a lot of
unvaccinated people.
confusion and misinformation, but the world's leading scientists confirm
Can you believe this?
that if you're fully vaccinated, your risk of severe illness from COVID-19 is very low. In fact, based on available data from the summer, only 1 out of every 160,000 fully vaccinated Americans was hospitalized for COVID per day. These are the
Yeah.
facts.
Yeah,
So here's where we
right.
stand.
Let me
Even
stop
with
it
the
here.
Delta
Where did he get that number from?
That's a good. Does anybody fact check this dude?
No,
Does
they only fact
anybody?
check they only fact check Donald Trump. You know, and when they fact check Donald Trump, they have to manipulate the numbers to make sure that when they fact check him, they can say, "See, Trump's wrong."
Right. Right.
Because you could do
And
that to anybody. I
right,
mean,
you
you could do
can.
that to anybody. But
You can
you mean to
especially
tell
do
me
that to Joe Biden.
he said only one in, I believe, let me hear what that number is again, shall we? Just so we're not putting words into his mouth, because people say that we put words into
COVID-19 is
people's mouth.
very low.
You know,
In fact,
let's hear it again.
based on available data from the summer, only 1 out of every 160,000 fully vaccinated Americans was hospitalized for COVID per day.
So
These are the facts.
he said one
Here's
out
what
of 160,000. Now, I haven't heard those numbers before. That's news to me. I've never heard that number before, and I'm trying to figure out where that number came from, because
Probably from the CDC.
I've never seen that. I'm looking at the CDC website, and I'm trying to find that information. I tried to find that information before we came on. I didn't find that specific stat
You're probably not gonna find it. It's
because
probably not anywhere.
I'm trying to figure out uh, just how many vaccinated people were, and here's the word he used, hospitalized. That's the word, right? I mean, that's the word that he used, right?
Right.
So he's
Mhm.
basically saying, well, if you get the vaccine, your chances of being hospitalized go down. Now, that's true.
No, what? Well, you know what? Hold on a second. I gotta throw something in here that I just thought of. If the hospitals are going to terminate all of their workers that did not get the shot or did not get vaccinated, then what is that going to do as far as the hospital's concerned when people are coming with anything? That doesn't make sense to me. They were okay and they were fine in the midst of the hottest times during the pandemic. It was okay for them to work. But now you're going to terminate them. You're going to allow them to be terminated. I mean, nothing that they're doing really makes sense to me. Nothing.
Yeah, well, you know what? And I'm as I mentioned, I'm still trying to find this specific stat. And I've looked on the CDC website and I am not seeing the stat. So I don't know where he's getting these numbers from. Like I said, you can get numbers from basically, I want to say, almost anywhere. But I'm just I'm watching him continue to put the blame. So the blame for the virus still existing, because I think that's what their goal is. They haven't stated this yet, by the way. So keep in mind, we asked this question at the very beginning. What is the actual goal numbers wise? Have you heard him mention that?
Nope.
Is it 5%? Like, is it 1% of people get it? Is the infection rate like what is the goal? I've never heard it before.
I don't think you're gonna hear those numbers at all.
I've never heard those numbers. So let me let them keep talking, because people, like I said, people think that we make this stuff up, Daddy. People think that we
Even with
just
the Delta
think
variant,
what we think.
it's not nearly as bad as last winter. But what makes it incredibly more frustrating is that we have the tools to combat COVID-19,
Oh,
and a distinct minority of Americans,
oh,
supported by a distinct minority of elected officials, are keeping us from turning the corner.
oh,
These pandemic politics, as I refer to, are making people sick, causing
oh,
unvaccinated people to die.
oh.
We cannot allow these actions to stand in the way of protecting the large majority of Americans who have done their part. I want to get back to life as normal. As your president, I'm announcing tonight a new plan to require more Americans to be vaccinated to combat those blocking public health.
Uh-oh. Here it is.
My plan also increases testing, protects our economy, and will make our kids safer in schools. It consists of 6 broad areas of action and many specific measures in each of those actions that you can read more about in whitehouse.gov. Whitehouse.gov. The measures, these are going to take time to have full impact.
Oh yeah, of
But
course.
if we implement them, I believe, and the scientists indicate, that the months ahead we can reduce the number of unvaccinated Americans, decrease hospitalizations and deaths, and allow our children to go to school safely and keep our economy strong by keeping businesses open. First, we must increase vaccinations among the unvaccinated with new vaccination requirements.
Oh.
With nearly 80 million eligible Americans who have not gotten vaccinated, many said they were waiting for approval from the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. Well, last month, the FDA granted that approval. So the time for waiting is over. This summer, we made progress through the combination of vaccine requirements and incentives, as well as the FDA approval.
Oh.
4 million more people got their first shot in August than they did in July. But we need to do more. This is not about freedom or personal choice.
Oh.
It's about protecting yourself and those around you.
Yeah. It's
people
not
who-
about freedom.
Wait a minute. Did
not
I hear
about
that
freedom.
correctly?
It's not
Did I-
about freedom, and it's not about personal choice.
Did I hear
In
that
other words,
correctly?
yeah. In other words, you have none.
Wait a
In other
minute. That
words, they're
he
trying to
didn't
take it
say
away
that,
from
Daddy. See,
people.
people say that we make this stuff up. He didn't say that, did he?
It's not about freedom or personal choice.
Maybe I need to replay that again?
Replay it again.
Because I think, like I said, I think people think that we make this stuff up. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is stuff that he said before, and which, by the way, I have a clip from before the election in which he says a lot of stuff. But let's hear President Joe Biden again. Do I have that clip
Well
again?
as the FDA approval. 4 million more people
Oh,
got their first shot in August than they did in July. But we need to do more. This is not about freedom,
maybe we heard it wrong.
personal choice.
Oh,
It's about protecting yourself and those around you,
oh,
people you work with,
oh.
the people you care about, the people you love. My job as president is to protect all Americans.
That's what he said, right?
So tonight,
So basically, what he's saying is
I'm taking your
only,
freedom away.
yeah, only we
I'm
know
taking
how
your
to
I'm
protect
taking
you.
your personal choice away.
Yeah, I mean that's what he's saying. He's saying only the government, only the state has enough sense to recognize what's best for you. So that's why we are allowed to make you do this, because you don't know any better.
Right.
You, the dumb American, you, the Bible thumper, you, the person who doesn't want to put stuff into your body to increase your viral load, you don't know any better. And even though we have a constitution, we're going to show you guys that we don't really care about that
Right.
constitution.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
we don't care about it
That's the deal
because
right there.
it's not about your freedom.
That's the thing. That's the thing right there. And here we go back to Jim Crow. Here we go back to segregation. He's segregating people, the
Oh,
vaccinated from the unvaccinated.
wait a
This
minute.
is segregation. You
Is that what
gotta
he
have
said?
you gotta have a card to eat. You gotta have
Oh,
this to that's segregation. We're going back to Jim Crow Joe.
let's hear this.
it's about protecting yourself and those around you,
I think that's what he
people
said.
you. But we need to do more.
What?
This is not about freedom or personal choice.
So,
It's not. It's
so
not.
so when he says stuff like this, people really think, Daddy, that me and you come up with stuff just to be mad at Joe Biden because they think that we're, as they would say in their minds, token conservative black Republicans. That's what they think.
Uncle Tom's.
I mean that, because that's been something that has been talked about, and people don't even know what that even means. That's what they think. They think that we're making this stuff up. And listen, if they think that it's okay, I mean, what can you say, Daddy, to a group of people who, when Joe Biden says stuff like this, they don't bat an eye?
You know what? And that's the when I really think about that, I think about the black community as a whole has gotten so apoplectic, so you know, we're not engaged. Things don't. It's like you take whatever comes down the pike. You don't even see. And here's the thing: when we come up and bring these kind of things up, it's almost like we're talking a foreign language.
Yep.
Why are you doing this? I got preachers that are, like, why are you? I got preachers asking me, why are you talking about this? Why are you talking about it so much?
Because y'all don't talk about it.
I'm talking
Because
about
y'all
it so
don't
much
talk
because
about it.
God told me to talk about it.
I'm about to say I
He
wouldn't have to
said,
talk
cry
about it.
loud and
Yeah.
spare not.
I'm about to say I wish I could talk about blessings and favor and won't he do it? Won't he do
Right.
it? You know what I mean?
Right.
I wish if other guys talked about it, then I would be able to talk about that stuff.
Right.
But they don't.
This season that we're in, pastors should be addressing it. Not just skimping over it, and here we go again, not manipulating people. Like, you can't come to my church unless you're vaccinated. You got to show proof. What kind of stuff? Remember when
75% of his church leave. That's what I hope.
Exactly. Whatever happened to bringing all the lame, the halt, the blind? You can't come to my church unless you're totally healed.
I realized something.
and
You know what?
delivered.
You know what I realized? People don't have people don't have that type of power, and that's why they don't want them coming to their church. See, this is something that I recognized. Um, in order to be able to have a certain kind of church, you have to have a certain type of endowment from the Holy Spirit in terms of your relationship with God. You have to have a certain type of power, and here's the word, authority. You have to have a certain type of authority over unclean spirits, and sickness is is oftentimes a result of a spirit. It's a spirit of sickness.
Right.
Same way that when
Right.
usually not always, but usually when there's a mental health problem, it's usually a spirit of infirmity, a spirit of sickness.
Uh-huh.
It's something that's
Right.
infecting the mind.
Right.
Most of these guys don't have power or authority over these spirits. And what they
Uh-oh.
have instead substituted for them, and this is the reason why recently, I mean, even myself, and I said, God, I don't want to just function as a pastor. I want to function as a person who has the authority to do what pastors did in the book of Acts.
Right.
What they've substituted for the power and for the authority is they've substituted a spirit of entertainment to replace it.
A
That's
spirit of
why
compromise.
they'll always get the great musicians to come to their church and play, and they'll always have the great stuff in terms of entertainment values that will get people, that will compel people to come. But how often do you see the pastor who's not afraid of the lame, who's not afraid of the leper, who's
Right.
not afraid of the crazy man
Right.
cutting himself with stones?
Right.
The
Right.
guy who comes
Right.
into the church, talking like this and talking to himself and
Right.
patting himself. Whatever happened to those guys who have the authority that when somebody comes and they says, get out of him in the name of Jesus?
Right. Right.
Like, whatever happened to those guys?
Right.
I'm starting to think, and this is and this is just me. This is just me. None of these other pastors probably had this thing, but the season is coming where I've always felt like when there's a revival, God has to raise up people who have authority. And too many people don't have authority because, as somebody like Paul Morton just showed, they're a part of the beast system.
Uh-oh.
And so that's why they don't want the sick guys to come into their church.
You can't come to my church unless you've been vaccinated.
Why? Because I don't have
Oh
the
my
power
God.
over that spirit of sickness. And I know it. See, I don't know.
There you go. There you
Maybe
go.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody will correct me. Maybe one of these apostles or whatnot will correct me later on and say, "You're wrong, man, for calling this man out. You're wrong." I'm not calling him out. I'm speculating. I'm just speculating. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. Maybe I don't know if that's what it looks like to you, Daddy. But when I hear Joe Biden talk like this, and guys like Paul Morton who are supporting him,
I'm
I
calling him
mean,
out. I'm
I
calling
mean,
him out.
what more can you really say about him? I mean, what more can you say? I mean, what more can we say? You know what?
What does
Maybe
that say? What does that say about uh uh the and I want to put it in the proper context. What does that say about the black church? Because I believe that's the context that's in. That's over here. That's the black church.
Hmm.
But what we're looking at and what we aspire to is the kingdom of God, the kingdom. In the black church, don't go in there unless you've been vaccinated. Don't go in there. Don't start preaching against sin.
Hmm.
Don't
Hmm.
don't talk. Don't be talking about no deliverance in here. If they come in here acting crazy, we gonna put them out.
Yeah.
That's because that's kingdom work. That's not church work. That's not church folk dealing with that. That's those kingdom people over there.
Woo. You know what? Wow. And you know what? Maybe we should continue to listen to Jim Crow Joe, who,
Oh
by the
my
way, it's not surprising that he would espouse
It's
Jim
about
Crow
protecting
values with this
yourself and
with this
those around you,
vaccine. You know, why not?
the people you work
I
with,
mean, he's Jim Crow Joe.
the
Why
people you
not?
care
Why
about,
wouldn't he?
the people you love. My job as president is to protect all Americans.
Oh,
So tonight, I'm announcing that the Department of Labor is developing an emergency rule to require all employers with 100 or more employees that together employ over 80 million workers to ensure their workforces are fully vaccinated or show a negative test at least once a week. Some of the biggest companies are already requiring this. United Airlines, Disney, Tyson's Food, and
So
even
what?
Fox News. The bottom line,
and even Fox
vaccinated
News,
work.
do you hear
and
this?
even
I mean,
Fox News.
this just gets better and better, doesn't it? I mean, it just gets better
You know
and
what? You
better
know what? You know
and
what?
better.
Let me tell y'all something. Let me tell y'all what the deal is on this. This whole announcement, this whole speech was a ruse. You know why it's a ruse? It's because he is feeling the heat about Afghanistan.
I think so.
Well, who was it that said? I think it was Rahm Emanuel. Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Mm-hmm.
So he's feeling the heat because the stuff he did in Afghanistan is treasonous. The stuff he did as far as Afghanistan, as far as I'm concerned, is grounds for impeachment. Is grounds for being court-martialed. He's leaving people behind. And let
You would think.
me tell you this. Let me
You would
tell you,
think.
listen, I heard a guy that had won the Congressional Medal of Honor, because you know what they're doing. These SEAL teams and these Delta forces and these things, they're getting together and they're going back over there and they're getting people out. And the thing is that the State Department was taking credit for these guys, these teams going back over there and getting people out. But these guys on these teams are coming out and saying, no, these people are lying. They're lying. They're coming out. Now, of course, they're not going to put that in the mainstream media. I heard it on Fox, and it's definitely on all the other little outlets that are speaking truth and putting, but you're not going to hear it in the mainstream media. And here's the thing that I heard that really, really bothered me was that when those 13 service men and women did not have to die.
That's right.
They did not have to die. You know why?
Because
Because
there was intelligence on that, I believe.
it was intelligence on that. They were tracking the suicide bomber. They had him in the sights of the drone had him. They had the trigger, and they were told to stand down.
By who? Who gave that order?
State Department. State Department.
Now, this is
that's a fact. That's a fact.
Now, since we're
That's
on
from
YouTube,
people that were on the ground in Afghanistan who had the intelligence. They're leaking this.
So let me ask you something. As we listen to Joe Biden talk about what he's going to do in terms of his authoritarian regime setup.
He wants to take all the heat off Afghanistan. That's why he's doing this.
Why do you think? And this sounds like, this reminds me of like the Tom Clancy books and games that I would play. You know, a game like Splinter Cell, where the guy would be sitting there doing his job and doing his duty to his country, and then he'd be asking the question of like, why would guys who are in the State Department or in the intelligence community, why would they let something and want something like this to happen? And then there's always a nefarious guy who gives his reasons for why he allows something to happen, because he says, well, the Pentagon needs a wake-up call to let us do what we want to do. And doesn't this remind you, and this goes back to something that we talked about, and like I said, there's no script. We're just coming up with this on the top of our head. Doesn't this remind you of one of the biggest issues that I believe that any conservative president would have to deal with if he was truly trying to run the country properly, which is finishing what John F. Kennedy started by taking and stripping and reducing greatly the power of the intelligence agencies?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, because due to the fact that, like, who is accountable, and this is my question, who's accountable for that decision to not pull the trigger, to not take out the suicide bomber? Because, we oftentimes, I mean, I've heard and watched a couple of congressional inquiries to guys who are the head of the Pentagon or a general over the head of affairs in Afghanistan. I've seen some of these, but oftentimes the people who are in charge of these covert things, they're never brought up on charges. They're never brought up before the public inquiry.
Look at this. Listen to this. It's the same people that's making these decisions to leave Americans over there, to leave equipment over there. The same Americans that's making decisions to negotiate with the Taliban. And like I said before, negotiating with the Taliban is like negotiating with the devil. You
I
don't
agree.
do it.
And just
These are the same.
I
These are
agree.
I mean, it just keeps on going on. And then you say to yourself, when are people going to wake up? That's what this whole broadcast is about.
And you know what?
Hopefully, if people get mad or angry at us or upset with us, maybe they'll go somewhere and dig and get some information and say, oh, these guys is lying, or I don't believe nothing that comes out of their mouth. Maybe it will persuade them to go look some stuff up for themselves and find out what the truth really is.
Yeah. And
One
you
of
know
the
what?
things that I
Yeah.
did, one of the things that I always did, you remember this, as a pastor, just about every Sunday, don't believe nothing that I'm saying up here out from this pulpit. Get into the word of God for yourself and find out if it's true for yourself. Because see, here's the thing with truth. The way truth is disseminated, if it's disseminated from a man or from a person or from this one, then you got to trust in this particular person to tell you the truth, tell you what's really true. By the time you get the truth second, and what you're doing is you get the truth secondhand. But when you go to the word of God for yourself, and that you get into that word, and the word is revealed to you out of the scriptures, and then the Holy Ghost comes and confirms that word in you, you got that straight from the throne room. You don't need nobody else confirming nothing, because God has confirmed his word. And that's what God does. He confirms his word. So people, what I'm seeing in people, what this is showing me is that people aren't really getting their word. They don't know how to garner the truth, the absolute truth from the throne room. It's too many people and too many pastors that have gotten people so caught up with them and their personalities that they can't hear truth from nothing else unless it's from this one, unless it's from that one. Oh, my pastor said this, or my pastor said that. Well, what is Jesus saying to you? You know what I'm saying? Too often, pastors are teaching people how to rely on pastors, and on their teaching and on their entertainment antics, rather than causing people to rely on the word of God. I want to just give a short testimony, and then I'll be done. One of the things that happened to me is I just happened to one time be flipping through the channels back when you guys were kids, little kids. My children who are grown now were kids. And I came upon this lady by the name of Kay Arthur. Kay Arthur was teaching the word. I mean, like I'd never seen it taught before. She wasn't tuning up. She wasn't doing no antics. She was going And her motto was line upon line, precept upon precept. And it's something about her that I stayed on that channel, and then I found out it came on every week at this same time, and I would tune in every week because I was getting a hunger and a thirst for truth. And she was teaching you how to get it for yourself. How many of y'all go to a church where you are being taught how to dig into that word and get that truth out for yourself? How many people are really taught that instead of relying upon this man to tell you what's going on? And so the essence is here of what I'm trying to say is that there's nothing like getting truth for yourself, because once God reveals it to you, you got it. Can't nobody take it away from you. Can't nobody steer you in another direction, because this is what I heard God say. This is what I heard when I'm worried about my child who can't talk, who stutters, who got to hit himself to get words out. And I hear God telling me he's like that because of his purpose. He's going to be all right. Then I don't care what the doctors say. I don't care what people say or how they act. I know, because I have it. I have the witness in my spirit, the witness in my heart, that everything is going to be all right with my child, because God told me it's going to be all right. Let me stop right here, because I can feel like I'm getting ready to go on a tangent.
Well,
And the child, and the child that I'm talking about is a child that's on this broadcast with me, speaking to you. You would never know that he couldn't hardly talk. Had a speech and had to hit himself to get words out. Now he's speaking better than me.
I'm gonna say I wouldn't say all that, but
I would. I am, because that's the truth.
Should we go back to listen to more of Joe Biden's plan to mandate everybody into submission? I would say.
Well, I'm done with Joe, but you can play.
Some unvaccinated coworkers. We're going to reduce the spread of COVID-19 by increasing the share of the workforce that is vaccinated in businesses all across America.
That's his plan.
My plan will extend the vaccination requirements that I previously issued in the healthcare field. Already, I've announced we'll be requiring vaccinations of all nursing home workers who treat patients on Medicare and Medicaid, because I have that federal authority. Tonight, I'm using that same authority to expand that to cover those who work in hospitals.
I guess we'll find out.
Home health care facilities or other medical facilities.
I guess we're going to find out.
17 million healthcare workers.
Oh.
If you're seeking care at a health facility, you should be able to know that the people treating you are vaccinated. Simple, straightforward, period. Next, I will sign an executive order that will now require all executive branch federal employees to be vaccinated. All.
Another unconstitutional
thing, huh? Federal contractors to do the same. If you want to work with the federal government and do business with us, get vaccinated. If you want to do business with the federal government, vaccinate your workforce. And tonight, I'm removing one of the last remaining obstacles.
Wait a minute. What's
difficult for you to get vaccinated?
What's this?
The Department of Labor will require employers with 100 or more workers to give those workers paid time off to get vaccinated.
So now they have to pay them vacation to go get it. Oh, wow.
Vaccinated or take a loved one to get vaccinated. Today, in total, vaccine requirements in my plan will affect about 100 million Americans.
You know what? This is what happens when you allow the government to become too big.
Exactly.
And people don't understand the difference. If you want to know the difference between really parties, you can really sum it up in a few words. One party believes in small government, the other party believes in big government. Now, rhinos also believe in big government because they spend the same and they act like they don't want to spend the same, and they do the same thing as the other guys. who at least admit that they want big government and government control. The rhinos will allow there to be big government because that gives them a job and that gives them more money to put into their pockets too. But real conservatives want limited government. When the government is so big that they can do things such as, well, we have contractors who we employ and we do this, the government shouldn't be employing anybody. That's number one. But the government then grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. And because conservatives cannot vote in people who actually believe in enforcing small government, this is what we get. Now we get a guy in there, Joe Biden, who believes now, because the government is so big and too big to fail, this is what we can do. And people are going to just have to take it. They're going to have to take it. They got to take it.
Yeah,
Why?
Because we
own everything. Yeah.
This is our introduction to, and if we can slip this past the people and nobody says anything and we get away with this, then guess what else is coming down the pike? It's not going to stop here.
Yep.
And so people need to rise up. And I'm hearing even people talking about Democrats upset are upset, and they should be. They should be upset enough to get out of the Democratic Party.
And you know what's funny? What's funny about this to me is this isn't something that is new. It's not like this is something that Joe Biden just surprised everybody all of a sudden, where out of nowhere he all of a sudden decides to make a big time stance on something. You know what I mean? This isn't something new.
Yeah.
This is something that if people were actually paying attention, they would have seen this in the fact of his debate, so to speak. And so maybe I should play that clip. Should I play that? Do I have access to that clip? Do I have that clip where I'm showing people who were not listening to Joe Biden while he was campaigning out of his basement? Do I have that clip where he basically makes it clear what he would do if he was elected as president? Because I don't think that a lot of people paid attention to this. Maybe I need to bring this up so that we can see this, and so people can stop thinking that we just make this stuff up. Do you have that clip here?
220,000 Americans dead.
Oh,
You hear nothing else I say tonight. Hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially. Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as president of the United States of America. We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day. And there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. If we just wore these masks, the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives.
Really? Those masks, those cloth masks that don't stop anything?
And still has no plan, no comprehensive plan. What I would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing and rapid testing. I would make sure that we set up national standards as to how to open up schools and open up businesses so they can be safe, and give them the wherewithal, the financial resources to be able to do that. We're in a situation now where,
in other words,
the Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals.
In other words, what he's saying is
for the first time ever,
he would get rid of states' rights. I would centralize the power. I would make it so that the federal government oversteps its bounds and begins to violate states' rights by dictating to the states what they can and cannot do. That's what he said. I mean, isn't that what he just said? Didn't he say that?
That's what
And
he
he
said.
and he said this before the election. Now, granted, watch this. The media did such an awful job of actually reporting what Joe Biden actually wanted to do and who he was, because all they actually reported about Joe Biden is that, well, he's not Donald Trump. He's not tweeting.
Exactly.
He's not
Exactly.
tweeting. He's not a racist. He's not going to offend people.
Right.
He's just not Trump. He's going to make it so that we, the media, stop bullying you, the American public, into getting rid of this man. That's what we want, because we don't want Trump in there. We, the media, are going to bully you until you get Trump out of there. And the American public, guess what they did? They bought it.
They caved.
They got bullied.
You know why they caved?
They
You know
let
why
them
they
get
caved?
bodied
Right.
into
When you getting it
stealing.
when you getting it from the mainstream media, you getting it from the tech giants, you getting it from these big corporations in Hollywood, uh, and and that's your whole source of knowledge is coming from these people. Then you tend to get here we go again. You tend to give in. And when you're not rooted and grounded in truth, then you're going to cave. But if you're rooted and grounded in truth, and you know what the word of God says, and you know what truth is, you're not giving in. You're not thinking about what these people are saying. Now, I guarantee you this abortion ruling in Texas, with the heartbeat thing, he's going to use that. Guarantee you, he's going to use that to bring up packing the courts again. That's what
Oh
he wants
yeah.
to do. That's what he
See,
wants to do.
and this is something that I believe, because they haven't. This is a lot of people don't a lot since a lot of people don't have an understanding of how government works, and the fact that most of the things that actually influence them and affect them are done from the local county level, city level, borough level, state level. They don't understand that the federal government really doesn't have a right to do a lot of different things. And
Exactly.
so they vote maybe once every 4 years instead of voting once every year.
Right.
And then
For
they
the
wonder
most
why
part,
stuff is going on.
yeah, for the most part, the average person doesn't know how government works, and that's part of the problem. And the Bible talks about my people being destroyed for the lack of knowledge. It seems like we, especially when it comes to the, I'm not going to say the black community, I'm going to say the community in general. It seems like the communities really involve themselves with things that aren't going to be productive to them in the long run. And I think we see that. I think we see that happening. We should be, and I think we're seeing it now. But of course, the media is going to downplay it. But I think people are rising up. And I look at the situation in California, and of course, the news media is for Gavin Newsom. But if you think about it, if you're a critical thinking person, and especially if you live in California, why would you want this man that's doing such great harm to your state? Why would you want him to stay in office? You know,
It would have to be, and this is something that we've talked about. This is about ignorance.
It- that's the elephant in the room.
A lot of people are very ignorant to who actually is running the government. And one of the issues that we have, I'm going to say this so that people don't think that it's you saying this. One of the issues that we have is that people don't understand who actually is really running the government. The president of the United States is just one part of it. I mean, he is the executive branch. He does have
Executive branch.
a lot of power, but there's one branch of government that we don't talk about a lot, and we've talked about it on this show a lot, but they're the ones who are in fact pulling the strings. And there's two groups of people that I'm going to talk about.
Legislature branch.
And we've never talked about these people on this show. We've talked about them briefly a little bit in this show earlier. But one part of the government that is, and I call it the shadow government, is the intelligence agencies or the
Oh
military
yeah.
industrial complex.
Right. Yeah.
That's one part. They're the ones who are giving the orders to be able to do things and do strikes and do everything, because not everything that they do is under scrutiny from either Congress or even from the president
Right.
himself.
Right.
We've heard, you've said it yourself, Daddy, about there being SEAL teams who are going out rescuing people. They're not getting
Right.
this stuff. They don't get every single mission approved. A lot of people think
Right.
that they do. They're not. They don't have to do that because
Well,
they're
these
they're too
people,
big.
I need to clarify that these people are people that are retired from the service. These people are veterans, or that's going back over there. From my understanding of what and they have people on the ground and different things. Uh, a lot of people don't know that. I think I heard today that Kenneth Copeland sent a jet over there to pick up people. Also, there's a man by the name of Glenn Beck who is with an organization that is sending planes over there to get the Afghan Christians. So you don't hear about them on the in the mainstream media, because that's they are definitely a target of the Taliban. They definitely want to get rid of Christians, but you don't hear
Mhm.
about that a lot, and it's not being stated. But Glenn Beck, I think he's already got 2 or 3 plane loads of people, Christians, Afghan Christians, out of there. And again, it's a lot of different organizations that's doing this, and the government, Joe Biden, is trying to take credit for it, and they're not letting them get away with it.
And what's funny is, as we have the military and industrial complex there, and we have the other branch that nobody talks about, which really pulls a lot more of the strings. I would say they're probably more important than the military and industrial complex, but that would be the Federal Reserve Bank.
Yeah,
The Federal
yeah,
Reserve Bank controls the economy of the United States, whether there's inflation, whether there's a recession, whether there's high interest rates, all that stuff. All that stuff is controlled by the central bank of the United States, or the Federal Reserve. And nobody thinks about who is in charge of the Federal Reserve and who is he accountable to? Who does he answer to? Who's pulling his
right,
strings?
right,
And they have the ability to, if they wanted to, fund certain things. They can. When there's more war efforts that need to be funded, guess who they go to? They go and they ask to borrow more money. Whenever you got a stimulus bill or a stimulus check in the mail that you were able to cash, guess who they had to go ask for it? The Fed.
right,
So
right,
these are branches of governments that are not elected. I'm going to say that again. These are not elected officials.
right,
All right. And it's very dangerous to have non elected officials with a position of power who can just do certain things, because when they do things and when they decide to do certain things and when they make mistakes, the people who have to take accountability for it is not them. It's very oftentimes it's the president of the United States, it's Congress, or it's somebody who they decide to scapegoat. This is the reason why, and maybe I'll play this speech as we go off the air. This is the reason why somebody like John F. Kennedy got tired of dealing with the military industrial complex, because he heeded the warning from Dwight Eisenhower.
right,
And after the Bay of Pigs, or the Cuba Missile Crisis, or the fiasco, I probably would have to ask you more about that, Eddie, if you even remember that, because I think you were like 4 or 5 when that happened. So you might not remember that as much. But after this fiasco, he came to the conclusion of, you know what? I'm tired of these unelected people making these high priority decisions. And it causes the country to go in a certain direction in which the people who voted didn't vote for. And I think that that's something that whoever is a conservative president in the future, when he comes up, he needs to take care of that issue before he can do anything. We saw throughout the entire presidency for Donald Trump, but from before the time that he was elected, him having to fight and deal with a shadow government.
The whole time he was in office. It's a wonder he got anything done.
And what's interesting to me about President Trump is he actually had an ally in one of those shadow governments. He had an ally in the Federal Reserve. And
He did.
there's a reason why he was able to get them to be an ally as a Federal Reserve, because he actually used a very savvy business move on them regarding foreign trade and foreign assets that I don't have enough time to get into, at least today. But he had them as an asset, but he did not have the military industrial complex as an asset, even though he did everything he could to help rebuild the military back up.
Right. If he had stayed in, I believe he would have eventually got that from them. He was because as he went along, he was winning people over. And then he was winning people over, and then at the same time he was weeding people out. Like your Mad Dog. What was the general's name?
Oh, you mean General Mattis?
Yeah, he got General Mattis out, and the other guy that was in there, because I was just saying that as a point of him really kind of taking over in these areas of government, and that was stopped short because of a fraudulent election. So when he comes back, hopefully he won't be hindered. But again, these people hate this man so much. They're gonna fight him tooth and nail. No, it doesn't matter. But I would, if I were them, I would be really, I would be really cautious about that. So,
you know what? And what's interesting to me as I get ready to come to a close, because I'm still kind of angry in a sense that people sit by idly and they allow this to happen. You remember the phrase, and I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. I'll probably remember it once we go off the air, and then I'll be mad. Remember the phrase that goes, evil triumphs when good men sit by and do nothing? Or tyranny prevails when good men sit by and they do nothing. And I think that's what is happening, because it always seems like, to me, there's one group of people who decide, like, all right, we're mad about this and we're going to be very vocal, and they have the power. And if you don't know this, there's one party or one direction that has the support of one of the parts of the military industrial complex intelligence agencies, and that's the media. There's one party that has their support, because I count the media as a military asset. Yes, I count the media as a military asset, because, as I mentioned before when I spoke to the guy from China, and this was one of the most profound things that he said, well, people told us whenever we came here that, China doesn't have a free government and we have propaganda on our airways, and we can see it when we come here, and we understand that. But he said, but the difference between us and you guys is that our government is upfront about releasing propaganda.
Right.
He said here, the media acts as if they're not on the side of anybody, but they're still also being used by the government to promote propaganda. I thought that was quite profound.
Right.
Because he said, I mean, which one would you rather have? Because he said for himself personally, he said, well, at least we know what our government's doing. You know what I mean? And we kind of can just, we kind of understand why they do a lot of different things, which we didn't talk about this a lot before. I think we might have briefly touched on it last week, but this is why China does certain things to control how their population thinks. This is why on weekends they're kids aren't allowed to play video games for more than an hour. I mean,
They're hitting the
it's
book.
just stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, and they have that much control to be able to do that. He also was explaining to me about why China steals so many IPs. And the reason is because, he talked about how they're not allowed to take stuff from other countries because the way that other countries report, the Chinese government basically knows that the CIA is in control of the American media, and it would directly conflict with what they're trying to teach their people. So they're not allowed to just get computers and use apps and stuff from America like Google and Chrome and all that other stuff.
Right.
And so instead, what they do instead, because they know people want them, they get somebody to build a knockoff. That's what he said. He said they get somebody to basically build a knockoff that's approved by the government. Now, what's interesting to me is these are two different governments with supposedly different ideas. But if you look at it, really, what's scary is
Wow.
they
Wow.
both
You
really
going
have the
crazy.
same idea,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is control.
Control.
Ultimately,
Control.
it's control. But the difference is, and I had to agree with him. He said, at least I can have respect for my government because at least they make it clear that they want control, whereas your government
Tell
is
you up
deceitful
front.
about it.
Right.
And I
Very
said,
deceitful.
wow, you know what? I never thought of it like that, man. You know,
That's true. That's true.
and so when you're dealing with this, when you're dealing with the military industrial complex, and when you're dealing with uh, how they've taken over this country in terms of the direction of where they wanted it to go, because they don't want it to be a country that is uh, founded on the Constitution. They want to rewrite the Constitution. That's why they want to get rid of it. That's why there's so much. That's why there's so much of a plan to create a racial tension to basically teach that the government is flawed, so there needs to be a new one, and a new group of people need to be able to take control and rise up. And they're promising that you're going to be those people who are in control, when really they have the same agenda as China, which is they want elitist governmental control of everything. And only people who, I mean, this is the only place that you're going to hear stuff like this at, because nobody else is going to report stuff like this. But this is my explosive question as I close, Daddy. I think I asked this, but I'm still waiting for maybe somebody else to give me an answer that I think would satisfy. And the question is, why is it that we didn't focus on, and I talked about this under Trump too, why is it that we did not develop a treatment for COVID after infection with the same priority and urgency as we did the vaccine?
Oh my goodness. That's a good question.
Like
That's really good.
like do you have an answer for me on that? Because it's like, why not develop a treatment for COVID? Because you got a vaccine. So if you can do that in less than a year, why couldn't you come up with something that is a treatment that when you get it, just like how you go to the store and you get Robitussin whenever you get a cold, or you go to your doctor and get antibiotics for something, why not put that much time and energy into and research into actually curing it?
I need to sit up on this one.
So, I mean, that's my question.
Okay, I'm gonna give you an
Even
answer.
though I have a answer that I suspect, but you might go in the same direction that I'm thinking, though. So what is your answer? What do you think? Why do you think that they didn't do this?
Because they didn't want to do it. They're you seriously. I mean, they're using this. They're using this because this is how they got in the door with, as far as the election was concerned. Remember, the mail-in ballots. As a matter of fact, I was just, when I'm thinking about that, I was just telling somebody at work that I kind of go around about with, and that there's videotape of people jumping out of these cars with backpacks on, sticking ballots into the drop boxes for the election. Like it's like a coordinated thing. But to get back to your question is that this they didn't want to develop anything because they want to milk this scandemic for all it's worth, and that's what they're doing now. You know, it had it was introduced at the optimum time, right before the election. You know, so that when the election came, we were like in full blown lockdown, so that they can do the mail in ballot thing. This was nobody can't tell me that this wasn't something that was planned. And to back up what I'm saying, if anybody hasn't heard anything about this, you need to go out and I'm gonna even give you some places to look and uh, uh, go in Google and type in Gateway Pundit, type in Breitbart, and those are all right wing. Put in what you want to put in. But right now, it's talking about it's a known fact. They know it for a fact. Fauci lied about the gain of function research. And why did he lie? And why were they doing gain of function research on this thing? So this is something that was plotted and planned, and therefore they don't want. They might even. I'm thinking they might even have a cure for this thing. They might even have a cure for it. So, but why? Because why not give it out? Because it's suiting them for the purpose that they purpose this thing for, is to really get in and control people's lives. You know, manipulate markets, manipulate elections. So they're getting they're getting their gain of function out of this
That's
out of
true.
this scandemic. They're getting that. You know, we get all these people to lock in. You know, we get this because their goal is to take over the government. Their goal is to get this government moving toward Marxism. And so it starts with this vaccination thing. We can get everybody to get vaccinated. Oh, we're going to force it on now. We're going to mandate it. If they mandate this and that is allowed to happen, what are they going to mandate next? And when I think about this, and I'm
Great
going to be
question.
done. And when I think about this, I'm thinking to myself, look how easy I don't believe this is the mark of the beast and nothing like that. But when I look at it, I say to myself, look how easy it would be for the mark of the beast. Look how easy it would be for them to get it out.
Because people live in fear now.
There you go.
You know, I mean, and that's what they did. Whenever you get people to live in fear, I mean, that's how you introduce something.
Right.
Fear is one of the greatest motivators that you can get to control human beings and send them to a certain direction. So I've had a theory about this, you know. I mean, like you said, obviously you make more money by making people get booster shots and vaccines.
Oh
Because
yeah, you know it's a moneymaker. You know it's and you know who's got a patent and all this kind of stuff with the virus. Fauci.
Which is very funny, which is why I've always wondered why nobody asked those questions, but nobody wants to ask those questions. Who knows? Maybe this video will get taken down off YouTube by somebody, because you know, who knows? There's always somebody watching.
Who else is involved with the vaccinations?
China, and then I think it was a ploy from the, as John F. Kennedy said, a list of a meeting from the heads of secret organizations who can meet in secret and do things in secret, and their mistakes are concealed. Their mistakes are buried.
Let me put a name out there. Bill Gates.
I don't have enough information to implicate directly Bill Gates, but
Bill Gates.
if he's a part of a group of secret people who meet,
Bill
I
Gates,
wouldn't be surprised at that.
Bill Gates has been involved with vaccinations for a long time. He was in Africa. I think they booted him out of Africa.
It's interesting.
But I
That's
mean,
interesting.
it's enough nuggets to throw out there so people can start doing a little bit of research on their own and finding out.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this has been another. Well, this has been actually a very random edition of Uncle Tom's Extravaganza, and like I said, I didn't plan on coming up here. And some circumstances happened that made me be up here, and so, like I said, I wanted to use the time to maybe bring another show, bring people some information, and allow them to see what it is that we see, and allow them to hear what it is that we hear, and just to have a dialogue about some things. And so we're going to be back here on Sunday, and I'm looking forward to it. I don't think I've been here at the regular studio in quite a while to do this show, but has a different look to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to next week. My final closing thoughts are, please get the information for yourself and research stuff. Don't just listen to something because somebody says it. Please go out and research it. There's nothing wrong with admitting that you don't know everything. One of the things that I love to do is to admit that I don't know everything. And in doing that, I then can say, all right, since I don't know, maybe I can figure out who to go to and where to go to figure out how to know it. Because once you do that, you open yourself up to be able to get access to knowledge. And it's not a rejection of knowledge, it's you embracing knowledge. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to being on Sunday's show. I guess you gave your final thoughts, Daddy. And this has been a long show, but this has been a special show. If you have any comments or anything, please comment in the comment section. Please like and subscribe. We want to get as many new subscribers, viewers as possible as we can. We're going to keep pushing out this content, even though we're getting shadow banned. And on Sunday, we have a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about. And make sure that you tune in and you share this with a friend on Facebook. And so until next time, this show, which is based on the life of Josiah Henson, based on making sure that Black people understand that they can be independent, that they can make it on their own, that they can create their own things, that they can be independent from the white man in society, and they don't have anybody who's going to hold them down. If we can teach people that the same way that Josiah Henson did when he taught people a vocation and he hired employees, then we're glad to be Uncle Tom's. And so until Sunday evening at 6:00 p.m., this is Justin Bozeman with my co-host, Pastor Alvin D. Bozeman. And we, of course, for this late Friday edition, are signing out.